extra, extra, read all about it. We are back with a new issue of MB2 Underground, hot off the press. My name is Sarah Kiefer.
And I'm Jonathan Tyrock, better known as JT. What's
Hi.
up, Sarah?
How's it going?
Great. How are you today?
Good. I did my intro that way because the person that we are talking to today was the editor of the newspaper in college, and I was on the newspaper in middle school.
That's pretty much the same thing, I think.
I did the horoscopes.
Where? Okay.
And I would go to horoscopes.com and copy and paste.
Wait. So when's your
think
birthday?
that's plagiarism.
What's your sign? Is it sign?
Libra.
Libra.
Yeah.
Okay. So what is a Libra?
I have no idea.
Okay. I know I'm a Cancer, which I never thought was a good thing, but
Yeah, I feel like you're a little bit of a cancer to this podcast. Ooh. Sorry. I just thought of it and I had to say it because I thought it was funny.
That's fair. That is fair. No, I did. I read that in the pre-show notes about the background on the paper, and come to find out, this gentleman's company has a newsletter that he is still very involved in.
And I thought that was super cool.
Interesting in and of itself because it is a very large company. Good partner of MB2's, one that in the dental world everybody will know because they have a huge presence. Love to get into how the organization has grown, but before we do that, we should probably introduce our guest.
Yeah.
So I'd like to bring on and welcome the managing director and third generation owner of Benco Dental, Mr. Chuck Cohen. Welcome, Chuck.
Well, thank you very much for having me. That was the nicest introduction anyone's ever given me. Like, you actually did some research, and I'm impressed. So thank you. And were you really the middle school horoscope editor of your newspaper?
Yes.
That's super impressive. Did it help you get into college?
No, not even close. I actually didn't make it my 8th grade year. In 7th grade, that was like the only function I could do.
Wait, did you get like cut from it?
Yeah, what had happened was we did like awards, so people would like nominate each other for like the smartest, the best in class, and I rigged it so that I would win one of the awards, and I got caught. I just wanted to win an award, and it was very clearly an award I wouldn't have won.
What was the award you rigged to get that you got?
I'll take it to my grave. Or to my 7th grade class that could look in the yearbook and tell you.
JT, we are on a mission.
I mean, I don't know anybody necessarily that went to school with Sarah, but maybe we can find it.
Why? I don't know why the spotlight's on me when we are in the presence of somebody who probably has better dating stories than I do. We were talking about this beforehand, and you said I could bring it up. So, Mr. Chuck, you are a bachelor.
I am.
A bachelor. You are back in the dating field. I know you said you're booed up. But
I am.
How is it being in the dating field in this time of the world?
So weird.
So weird. What did you do? How'd you do it?
Well, I was single before I got married, and then I've been single the last year and a half, and the two could not be more different.
Oh my gosh, yeah. You were married 28 years?
I was married 28 years, and now I had to learn how to text with someone, which was different.
Yep.
I had to learn to flirt all over again, which is very different.
What's your move?
Ooh, listening.
That's smart.
I'm a really good listener.
That's it. I think it's hilarious that you mentioned that you were single before you were married because I think most people are.
That's a really important detail, yes.
Well, that's true. I didn't probably say it right, but you're correct,
You're
JT.
contrasting the times.
I'm contrasting the two single periods of my life. Like
No, that's fair.
post-college.
Yep.
But I think that's a good call out. And so
Were you on dating apps?
I was on one dating app, and it was very interesting, but a little weird also.
Yeah.
But I had some success in the dating apps as well. The dating app I was on.
And you're booed up now.
I am.
Congrats.
Thank you.
How did you know they were I was going to say one, but I don't want to make assumptions. The next one.
Well, the next one, she's totally awesome and interesting and fascinating and beautiful, and I just love hanging out with her.
Oh my God, I love this.
great.
This is so cute.
What's something you guys like to do together?
Well, we like to go to dinner together, and we like to go to events together, and I just like to hang out with her. It's really nice, and it's been one of the things that's been interesting is I thought now that I'm alone, I thought the hardest part about being alone was not having someone care about me, but actually what I found out was I missed more not having someone else to care about.
That's deep.
So
That is
yeah,
really
it was a little deep. It was one of the learnings I had in my dating journey, and it's been really great. I like having someone to care about.
Well, and I like that you talked about you like hanging out with her. The first trip my fiance and I ever took together, I remember leaving and being like, you just planned so much fun stuff. Like, it was so amazing. And he was like, that's funny. I just kept doing things I thought would be fun, and you also think it's fun. And I think that that's the key, is finding like somebody you like to hang out with.
So one of the things that we did early on was a series of questions, and one of the questions was name things you have in common, and it said like name 4 things you have in common, but it turns out we had like 12.
Huge.
Which is great.
Overachiever.
Try hard. I prefer the term try hard, please.
Wait, okay, before we transition, because I know there's a lot more things, but
This could just be a dating podcast today. I mean, it is what it is.
what is your worst dating story? I want to hear like a dating horror story, because that's what people always ask me.
Wow. All right. So I have, for the last year and a half or so on my dating life, I have been entertaining 50-something-year-old men across the United States with dating stories. Most of them are not repeatable here, so I won't. But the most interesting, worst dating story was after, I'll summarize it, I could make it a long story or a short story. After the second date, I got a text message that was 3 screens long from the woman I went on a date with about what she needed, and she was upset about it. We are on 2 dates. And so it went on and on and on about what she needed, all about her, the whole thing. And I got to the end of the second screen on my phone, and I just said, oh, my God, this woman is a little bit crazy. And I said, look, I'm just not interested in going any farther. And then she called the next day. I guess she had talked to her daughter or something, and probably somebody said to her, maybe you shouldn't send a 3-screen long text message all about what you need out of a relationship after just 2 dates, because that's probably not a recipe for long-term success.
That's
Well, and
like
that's just,
the
like,
opposite of playing hard to get.
Oh, it was the opposite of hard to get.
Well, and that's like the first thing you do is you type out how you're feeling, and then you go and scrap it all, and you find a cute way to say it. You know what I mean?
Or you ask ChatGPT what to do with it or something. There's a lot of things you can do, but a 3-screen long text message was a little bit needy and didn't really work for me. Maybe it would work for someone else,
Yeah.
but it didn't work for me.
Yeah, you can handle needy when you like the person.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, well, I guess we can switch gears, but offline, I want to hear about the ones you couldn't tell online.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that'd be kind of fun to
This is a
sit in on.
family show, though. We don't do that
It
here.
is. It is a family show and a somewhat largely dental focused show. So let's talk about Benco. 3rd generation owner. Your grandfather started Benco back in the 30s?
So 1930 is when he opened his first location, but he really started 100 years ago in 1924. He was an independent rep going office to office selling dental instruments. And then he settled in northeastern Pennsylvania, home of the office. So like we're right near Scranton, Pennsylvania, and proud of it, which
Is
already
that a real place?
Are you serious?
No, that was a joke.
Yes.
Oh, it's a real place.
It's a real place. Don't insult Scranton.
I'm insulting my intelligence, not
Okay.
the place.
All right, Scranton is a real place.
Okay, I got it.
Thank you. And yeah, so the home of the office, and so that's where we're headquartered, and proud of it, which already says something strange about people in northeastern Pennsylvania, because most areas would not be proud to be the home of the office, but we are. So he started there in 1930, so we're coming up on our official 100th anniversary in a few years.
Was it called Benco at the time?
Yes, my grandfather's name was Benjamin Cohen, so he named it Benco because he thought he didn't want to name it Benjamin Cohen Dental Supplies. So Benco, that's
love
the
that.
origin of it. But not as interesting to me as MB2, which I learned today is a dental term, which I'd never heard. And after 30 years in dentistry, I thought I knew every dental term. But when I learned today what MB2 stands for, I said, I respect that game.
I love that you're like, I've been in dental a long time and I didn't know that. And I think that is like the funniest part of Dr. V's vision is like, it's meant to resonate with clinicians that I knew I didn't get it, but I started it. And MB2 is my entrance into dental. But somebody who's been here as long but isn't a clinician not getting it, I'm like, I think he had the right idea.
Well,
Absolutely.
I get a lot of questions when I'm talking to prospective doctors. Like, okay, wait a second. MB2, tell me what it is. And they've got an idea. They're like, is this the dental term? MB2? And sure enough.
So I respect the game. So yeah, Benco is named for my grandfather. He named it after himself in a way, and it's worked out well for the last 100 years.
When did he coin the term Benco? Was it back in the 20s, 30s?
So the original incorporation papers say Benco Dental.
That is sick.
So yeah, 1930 is when we settled down, but his incorporation I think was a year or two before. Yeah.
That is so cool. Like, I mean, that to me, that's like a name somebody would come up with today as far as, hey, this is what I'm going to do. for him to do that almost 100 years ago is awesome.
The branding is really important, and you guys know that. And so, yeah, very impressive. And he was an interesting gentleman. He started at 19 years old. So one of the things that makes our business kind of unique is we're almost at 100 years old, but we're only third generation. So he was an entrepreneur very early in his life.
Oh, yeah.
And he was an immigrant from Russia, and he only had a sixth grade education. So. That was a different time back then.
No
and
kidding.
He didn't understand. I mean, a lot of decisions that he made turned out to be really brilliant about the business, but he had no way of knowing it at the time. But it's worked out very well.
Brilliance meets luck.
Exactly. Luck and brilliance together.
How's the transition between, I mean, I guess it's probably hard to talk about between him and your father, but at least how was the transition like for you? Like you grew up and this was like the family dynamic. Was it the plan for you to do this? What was it like actually transitioning into the family business?
So interesting question, really interesting question.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. So my grandfather ran the business for about 30 years or so, and my father really ran the business from about 1959 until the early 1990s. And the first generation really made it. It was a very small business when my father took it over. He's the one who really grew it to be a mid-Atlantic business. So we sell everything in a dental office, and we did it at that point for dentists, basically New York, New Jersey, Delaware, D.C., that area. And then my brother and I came into the business in the early 1990s, and that's when we went from a mid-Atlantic player to a national player. So now we have operations across the country. But the specific answer to your question is my father made it very easy. Of course, it was an option, but it was encouraged, like a good family business. And my father really has always been passionate about dentistry as a great profession to serve. And I think that really worked out very well, resonated very well with me and my brother. And my brother and I made the independent decisions to come into the business, partly because we really feel very fortunate to serve dentistry. Great people doing great work. It's a very honest profession, and it's one in which partnership is really valued.
Yeah, pass the vision along.
Absolutely.
What is the age difference between you and your brother?
4 years. So I'm 58 and he's 54.
Okay.
Oh, wait. 58. You said you started in the early 90s, so you were 30-ish?
Oh, earlier than that. I joined the business right out of college. So I graduated college in 1989.
And what was your first job at Benco?
Well, before I went to college, I mean, I worked in the warehouse, packing boxes, and that was interesting. I got to tell you, because I hung out with people that I would not have otherwise had the opportunity to know. The business was much smaller. One of the big lessons that I learned then, which really helped me well in college, was I spent a lot of time, and I actually worked for a year before I went to college. I took a year off, what we now call a gap year, but wasn't very well known at the time. I took a gap year between high school and college, and I worked in the business. I did some marketing stuff, but also what I recognized was that there were a lot of people that worked at my family business that did not have the opportunity to go to college.
Yeah.
And I felt very fortunate. I had a lot of friends who started college just out of high school, and they honestly, I think, wasted a lot of their parents' money because they didn't really appreciate how lucky they were. So it was a really big life lesson for me to spend time with people who did not have the opportunity to do what I did.
Yeah.
And then go to college, and I figured out that I should really make sure I take advantage of that. So my first job was working in the warehouse. Then I was doing some marketing stuff before I entered college. Then after college, I came out of my college experience, and my father was always very passionate, and I think rightfully so, that your first job, when you're taking on a role in the business, should be to be an outside salesperson. And I got to tell you, it was a really hard job.
It's a humbling job.
It's a humbling job. It's a difficult job. It's a lot of work job, and that has a dating component too, which I can come back and talk about if you like. But starting as an outside salesperson, which both me and my brother did, was a really formative experience, because you really learn that you got to make sure you're making the dentist happy, and you got to make sure you're taking care of the customers in order to grow the business. And that was hugely helpful.
Okay, what was the dating component?
Well,
I'm just going to keep asking until JT cuts me off.
No, it's all good.
It's all
like
good.
I said, it's a dating show today.
So the first time I was single, I was living in New York, and I was an outside salesperson for Benco, and I was a nice Jewish guy. I was in this family business, but basically my day-to-day job was to call on dental offices, so it was hard, and I would get in a cab or on a bus or on the subway, and by the end of the day, I would come home with bags of returns, and this was not the world's greatest job. And so I was on the dating site, not dating sites, of course, but in the dating world, I was competing with, guys with Ivy League degrees who were lawyers and Goldman Sachs guys and had really great career prospects. And my career prospect was to call on dental offices, sell dental floss. And if you were the lucky woman who chose me to be your life partner, you got a one-way ticket to northeastern Pennsylvania where the family business was. And I got to tell you, looking back, I was the opposite of a catch. And somehow my wife picked me, and we had a very, very successful marriage for 28 years until she unfortunately passed away a year and a half ago. Yeah, thanks. But I still look back now and I think to myself, why did she pick me? I just got totally lucky, and we had a really great marriage. But in the dating pool at the time, I was pretty much the bottom of the barrel. Now, this time around, I have a little bit of a I'm more desirable, I think, than I was the first time around. And it's been an interesting sort of contrast.
Yeah, in a different place. You're no longer doing outside sales. You're running the place you were selling for. But yeah.
Exactly. And I've had a little bit more success in the time. And it's just a totally different dating experience. And I just look back and I think to myself, why did my wife pick me? I was like the booby prize. But it's
the what?
The booby prize.
I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I feel like you just said it again, but
like the worst. I mean, I was like, you pick out of a bag of toys or something and you get like the worst prize you could get. Like I was just not.
The booby prize is the bad prize?
Yeah, the bad prize.
I feel like that's like the best prize.
Are we allowed to laugh at that?
Oh yeah, we can laugh at that. I'm just thinking like booby trap. Is there some
booby trap?
That's definitely
right.
what I was thinking.
Thank you. Thank you. Rescue us from this line of questioning. That's good. But I would say the first time around, not necessarily a desirable dating prospect, but somehow a wonderful woman picked me, and I'll be forever grateful.
That's cool.
I like that story.
That's cool. Well, let's talk about the success that the company's had. You said when you took over, or your dad really grew it to the Mid-Atlantic, but now you guys cover 40 states and are in thousands of dental offices across the country. How was developing the organization from when you started to now? Like, what's that looked like, and what are some of the challenges that you've faced there building out those networks?
So we're in 50 states now. I don't the date, just to update the data, and we've got 5 distribution centers and 3 world-class design centers, and we're up to about 1,600 employees, and we're the number 3 player in the space. So we've got some great. Thank you. We've got some great credentials. My favorite credential, which I'll just throw out there as a little bit of a commercial, the number 1 credential that we have is that we have been rated consistently one of the best workplaces for healthcare in the United States by Fortune magazine. Last year we were number 30, which is great. Thank you.
Wait, did you say you went from 30 to?
No, like last year on the Fortune list of best places to work in healthcare, we were number 30
Gotcha.
as a company in the whole country, which
That's
was really
amazing.
exciting. Thank you. Very exciting, because we think if we create a great workplace where people want to work, then they'll deliver a great customer experience. It's a pretty simple formula. And I love when we have a credential to say, look, we don't say we're a great workplace. Somebody else said that.
Yeah.
But the question was really about the transition. The biggest transition, believe it or not, I thought was going from a situation where we were in the Mid-Atlantic, and in a worst case scenario, you could always put somebody in a car with a thing and fix a problem.
Yeah.
Like you're within 3 or 4 or 5 hours of every customer. Maybe you're not seeing them every day, but basically anything that goes wrong, you can kind of fix quickly. The idea, when we went from that to more of like 1,000 miles away, Florida, Georgia, we had to develop a lot better systems in order to serve those customers and make sure that we did a great customer experience. Opening our second distribution center was kind of difficult, but developing the computer systems to make it all work was difficult. And I think kind of like the MB2 story, really going from 5 practices to 800 practices, which is where you guys are almost now, is a huge transition. You need all kinds of better quality people, better systems, better processes. It's been an adventure, and you learn something every day.
I think one of the common themes or threads between Benco and MB2, and you've already hit on it, is understanding not only the folks in the business, but who you're ultimately serving. And obviously, dentists serve patients. And we here, the support team, we support and serve our dentists. And if you understand that all the way through and you're just treating those people right, making sure they're taken care of, the business in and of itself takes care. And you'll be successful. And it sounds like, given your history, your background, your start in the warehouse, kind of seeing every bit of the chain has really led the organization to say, hey, as long as we're taking care of everybody here, we're going to be successful. That's super cool.
And I don't feel like we paid enough attention to the fact that you're probably one of few organizational leaders that started at the company in a very low level, not to be offensive, but like you started in a warehouse and now you're co-running the place.
Yeah, you don't even have to do undercover boss because like you've been there.
Yeah.
Well, the whole thing you're talking about is just one of the things that I'm totally passionate about. And you can ask any of my people. So you guys, I think, sort of came around to what I would define as the secret sauce of Benco. And I think it's very simple. So people ask me sort of, what is it that you guys do differently? What is your secret ingredient? And my answer is always the same, and it's a standard answer, and I'm happy to share it, and all of our competitors can hear it. And if you want to go do it, great, but nobody ever does. And what it is what we call co-traveling, right? So basically at Benco Dental, everyone in a leadership position at Benco needs to be out with a sales rep or a service tech no less than generally once a month. Some people like 8 times a year.
Yeah.
But I'm in the field working with one of our reps at least 16 to 20 days a year. And that's true whether you're in my role, whether you're in my brother's role, whether you're the CFO, whether you're the IT person. I don't really care. And it's the one thing that I'm the most passionate about. And it's in your bonus is tied to it and dependent upon it. Why is that the secret sauce? Because I want to sit in a leadership meeting at Benco with our leadership team, and I want people to say, well, when I was out in Denver, Colorado, or in Des Moines, Iowa, or in Michigan, this is what I saw. And by the way, when I say co-travel, that doesn't mean standing around at a dental meeting talking to people, or it doesn't mean going to see your biggest, best customer. Like today, I'm happy to be visiting MB2. This is not a co-travel day. This is a customer visit, and that's a different thing. Co-traveling is getting in and out of the car 10, 15 times a day with a service tech, with an equipment specialist, with a territory rep, seeing dentists in their environment, asking them what their issues are that we can be helpful with, finding out what we're doing right and what we're doing wrong.
Getting your hands dirty.
There's no substitute for getting out in the field. And I say that all the time. I've been saying it for 20 years, and honestly, none of our competitors copy it because the dirty little secret is it's hard work.
Yeah.
You have to
People
get on a
don't wanna do it.
plane, you have to get on a bus, you have to get there, and you have to be with your people, and you have to listen to what your people tell you and what your customers say.
Well, you can't sit in a leadership meeting and talk about growth and evolution and what is needed if you're not in the field figuring out what the problems are. And I don't think a lot of people in those meetings and a lot of different companies want to be a part of the boots on the ground team. But
Absolutely.
You can't talk about what comes next if you don't have perspective, and you can't talk about impact if you're not in it.
No question. And the scary part is you have to go actually watch somebody actually eat the dog food that you made. So like everyone wants to make the dog food and just send it out and just expect that the dog or the subject is going to eat it. But what we do at Benco is we create programs for customers or dentists, and then we have to go out and actually, how do they work? And what you find out sometimes is the world's greatest idea when you're in the office in your ivory tower doesn't actually work when it meets the customer.
IRL.
Exactly.
You know what that means now with
In
your
real
texting
life.
experience.
Oh my God, so true. In real life. So you have to watch stuff actually be used in real life. And what you find out is that it doesn't always work the way you thought. And that's hard sometimes because you spend a lot of time working on it, and it's actually listening and watching. And there's no substitute for that.
Not to mention, it changes. I'm just thinking now about your dating experiences back in the 90s and now, like that changed. Even if somebody with your background and experience in the organization, you can say, oh yeah, I remember when I was in the warehouse. I remember when I was an outside sales rep. The stuff you did back then, if you never get back into the field now, you're not going to have the same ideas because things have changed, just like dating apps.
Well, and what I would also say is, and I've heard it a few times while I've been in the office today, is people will say, Dr. V says, and Dr. V says something because he's a dentist, he understands, he's treated patients, he continues to do those kinds of things, and that creates a culture here at MB2 that's very different from some place that's run by a corporate person or has a different background.
Is that what you would say is the brilliance of MB2?
Oh, good question.
Thank you.
I think the brilliance of MB2 goes back one step. So before I say what it is, let me just tell you a little bit about my observation from 30 years of direct watching the dental world. Is I meet a lot of dentists today who talk about the golden age of dentistry as being before, like the 1970s, the 1960s. I'm not quite sure why they think that, but there's some sort of image in their head that the days of Mad Men, in dentistry were sort of the best days to be a dentist.
Okay.
I think the wonderful thing about dentistry today, which leads directly to the brilliance of MB2, is there are more ways to be a dentist today than ever before. And I don't think we appreciate that enough. I don't think it gets talked about enough. What I mean is, a generation ago, basically the only way to be a dentist was to own your own practice and take on the responsibility yourself and figure it out on your own. That was the basic way. There were other examples. Maybe you could be a professor at a school or be in the federal government, but by far the most popular and really the predominant dentist model was to be a practice owner.
I know you're on a roll, and I don't want to interrupt you, but what is a federal government dentist?
Well, the Army perhaps, or
Okay,
a
that makes
researcher
sense.
for the NIH.
I don't know why I was thinking about like Trump's dentist, and I'm like, who's doing that? Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
We don't want to talk about Trump's dentist, but Donald Trump, President Trump's dentist. I want to give him the respect he deserves. So, but I would say that there were only a few ways to be a dentist. Today, we have more ways to be a dentist than ever. You can be an employee dentist. You can be a dentist at a DSO. You still can own your own practice. You can be an associate. You can buy somebody's practice. One of the things I think that's really cool about MB2 is, in a way, I feel like you guys have invented a new way to be a dentist, right? The business model of, which is unique in a way, especially at the scale you guys are doing it. The uniqueness is, I'm partly a practice owner, but I've got a big practice. Someone else is helping me, but I haven't given up my ownership. So I feel like I can make my own decisions. I feel like I can drive this practice to be as big or small and kind of make my own day-to-day decisions, clinically and otherwise. But at the same time, I'm part of a larger network, and these people have an ownership stake in my practice, and they're going to help me grow it, make it better, and achieve my goals. And in a way, I think one thing that at least I was overlooking before and now I appreciate even better is that MB2 has pioneered a new way to be a dentist. It's probably not for every dentist in America, but it's for enough dentists and it resonates with enough dentists that they really enjoy it. And I think that's one of the secrets to the success that you guys have had. And I respect the game.
I love that perspective.
No, definitely. It is, excuse me, it is the essence of taking an entrepreneur and providing them the resources, not only from a business acumen perspective, but one of the things you talk about culture, it's also all of the other dentist partners that are pouring into one another that, I look at what I do here and how we've been successful in talking with prospective partners. And I would say the same thing, or I'd echo what you said, which is MB2 is for a lot of folks. It may not be the right fit for everybody, but for the most part, there is something valuable here, and it's not what I do, what Sarah does. It's just the general idea of the organization. It's the structure. It is what Dr. V and team put in place when they started, which was what resources do dentists need to be able to be successful in the changing times. And here we are, this partnership organization, which is really cool and fun.
So if no one else has said it, I'll say it. Thank you for basically creating another way to be a dentist. And I think that is overlooked and should be applauded. And dentistry should be looking at you guys, among others. There's lots of ways to be a dentist. Thank you for creating that, because it really creates an opportunity for dentists to be more professionally and personally fulfilled in their job.
Well, and I mean, I think that the model has always been kind of obvious in my brain. But the way you said it was a new perspective for me, because we all know kind of the origin story. But when you think back on it, to your point, there were different ways to be dentists. And Dr. V and his group were like, I don't really love any of them. Like, how can I just create my own? And that, like, I don't know, it's like the brilliance, like you're saying, of being like, okay, if what exists isn't working, how can I create something that does? We talked a little bit about the brilliance of MB2. Mm-hmm. You talked a little bit about what makes Benco different from like a business cultural lens, but how do you technically impact that like employee experience? You're talking about like best places to work. Talk about like, getting in the field, making sure you always have the perspective, but what else are you doing within your organization to keep that company culture?
Well, I'll give you the non-answer answer first, which is I think it really starts with what we're not doing. And what we're not doing is we're not worrying about what Wall Street thinks, and we're not worrying about what stock analysts think. I don't have to worry about my mother-in-law as a stockholder telling me, why did the stock go up? Why did the stock go down? As we sit here today recording this, our two public company competitors are both under some sort of pressure from Wall Street to make different decisions about profitability and growth and employee relations. And one thing that we say at Benco is, as a privately held, multi-generation family enterprise, we have the luxury of thinking in decades and not quarters. And that's an unbelievable luxury. And that gets us around to the question you asked, which is what are we doing? And it starts with what we're not doing, and we're not wasting our time or worrying about what other people think. So it allows us to create a culture to say, hey, sort of like what you said, JT, about MB2, we may not be the right choice for every employee, but we'd like to think we're the right choice for the right employees.
Yeah.
One of the statistics that I love to cite is it's harder to get a job at Benco than it is to get into Harvard based on how many applications we get for jobs and how many people actually get hired. We have a lower acceptance rate than Harvard does. And that's on purpose because we've got a lot of people who want to come and work in our organization, and we are very, very selective about who we take. So to answer your question, it starts with getting the right people and then making sure we retain them. It talks about, we talk about accountability, but we also talk about people making a difference. We're really focused on communicating with our people on a regular basis. We think great people want to know what's going on in the organization, where the organization is going. So we have a lot of communication tools to keep everybody on the same, on the same page. And then we just give them great systems and tools to work with so that they can create a great customer experience. It's not that hard when you actually can focus on it.
Yeah. I know I only have one more question. Would you hire JT and I?
Absolutely.
I just want to know that we could make it past the Harvard acceptance.
Look, I
I
think,
feel like we just got into Harvard somehow.
I think you could. I think he would sit down, grill me in an interview and be like, oh, yeah, Sarah, you're in for sure, JT. You might be better fit somewhere else.
Not at all. First of all, JT, you've already figured out the number one job retention, deal, which is to get the right title. And as the business development guy, nobody knows exactly what you do. So I love that. And then Sarah, I love your sassy.
Thank you.
You're so sassy. I don't know even what you do here other than this podcast, but whatever it is, I'm sure you do it well.
For what it's worth, trying to explain what I do to people usually leaves them confused. I'm going to take the sass, though, as a compliment.
100%.
I want Chuck to come back every week and to do a podcast with Chuck into perpetuity because this has been so much fun. And
What's a perpetuity?
Perpetuity? Like forever.
Oh,
Into forever.
Said that. We get it. Big words. Is there anything that we didn't touch on that you wanted to make sure we talked about?
No, you guys did a great job. This was really a lot of fun. We went all the way from my dating stories, a very, PG-13 version or G-rated version of my dating stories, which are great, which was fun, to a little bit about Benco and a little bit about MB2. So I think we're good. Can
you give us one more dating story and you can get a little bit more risky with it and they can just cut it off. They can cut it out if they don't like it, but I want to hear the good stuff. Just one.
That's fine. I'm great for it. I'm here.
No.
Okay, fine.
That'll have to be on the MB2 Extra Underground podcast.
All right.
Yep. Okay, that was a good exit, wasn't it? With that being said, Chuck, thank you so much for joining us.
This was so much fun.
This has really been a lot of fun. You've been a great guest, and the success of Benco speaks for itself. I know it didn't necessarily start with you, but you have carried on the legacy and you have continued to help the organization flourish. And so it's fun to hear. We wish you nothing but continued success. With that said, MB2 Undergrounders, this concludes another episode of the MB2 Underground. We appreciate everybody who tunes in, subscribes to all of the platforms, and Sarah's favorite, watches us on YouTube. So that being said, hope everybody has a great afternoon. We'll see you next time.
Holla.